And Ale, in that from the federation boss, it's some high expectations. Let me just quote some of it. To regain top spot and be in charge of the greatest national team on the planet.
Historically, the greatest national team in the planet. In terms of World Cup wins, the greatest national team in the planet. Right now, not so much. That now Ancelotti is going to turn to Vini and Rodrigo in particular and say, hey guys, listen, hey Rodrigo, I need you to be really special for me. Now, you know that when it came to it, you're the one that was going to sit down at Real Madrid. However, in Brazil, I'm really going to need you. I imagine that these players are torn.
O mundo do futebol parou com a notícia do Carlo Ancelotti na seleção brasileira. E uma das questões debatidas num programa da ESPN americana é como será a relação do Ancelotti com o Rodrigo, já que no Real Madrid a relação entre eles aparentemente não está das melhores, já que o brasileiro nunca teve o espaço que achava merecido, mesmo salvando o Real em diversos momentos. Vamos conferir, já se inscrevam aí no canal e bora!
I don't think Madrid will be too happy that this announcement's been made by Brazil. I don't think it looks great from a Madrid point of view. In terms of why it's come out today, it's also interesting. We should note one other story that's come out today is that the president of the Brazilian Football Confederation, Eduardo Rodrigues, who we heard from there, is facing some investigations for various issues in terms of the way that he was appointed. Another step came in that process today in terms of inquiries being launched. I'll let you guys sort of join up the dots there about why it might be advantageous for the Ancelotti appointment to be made official today as that news is coming out as well. So like I say, no surprise at all that Ancelotti is off, that he's off to Brazil. A big job for him there going to the 2026 World Cup. But the timing, the fact it's come out today, the fact it hasn't come from Madrid is very interesting.
Yeah, it really is, especially with a bit of the context there. And Ale, in that from the federation boss, it's some high expectations. Let me just quote some of it. To regain top spot and be in charge of the greatest national team on the planet.
Historically, the greatest national team in the planet. In terms of World Cup wins, the greatest national team in the planet. Right now, not so much. And so, while Carlo Ancelotti is a tremendous manager, and while there is no questioning his resume and his curriculum and everything that he brings to Brazil, there is questioning Brazil itself in terms of the talent level. There is questioning what is the direction that Brazil expects to go and how do they get there. Because the shortage in talent from Brazil as compared to what Ronaldo Rodriguez is talking about, the greatest national team in the world, I think is significant. Brazil has struggled through World Cup qualifiers, and they have struggled to find rhythm, they have struggled to find possession of the ball, they have struggled to dominate games. Now I'm talking about Brazil in South America, struggling to dominate games, struggling with possession of the ball. This is Brazil I'm talking about. With all due respect to my own country, we're not talking about Venezuela. We're talking about Brazil. And incidentally, Brazil did not beat Venezuela in World Cup qualifiers this time around. There is a connection. All I'm telling you is that Brazil is not at the standard that Ronaldo Rodriguez and the Brazilian Federation is suggesting. They are short from that. And if indeed they're thinking that Carlo Ancelotti showing off is going to make this magically exponentially better, I don't quite see that leap. He'll make them better, but to be a World Cup favorite, that's a different conversation altogether.
That's quite the appointment if they are to get Carlo Ancelotti, though, isn't it, Stevie?
No, it's fantastic. It's absolutely what the doctor ordered. It's because of what Ali was explaining, where the actual team is and the player situation in terms of the squad and the ability and the results. This, I mean, could it get any better? That the timing of this, just when they need it, and just when the president needs it, not only because he's under investigation, but I'm sure every single football follower in, well, let's just say Brazil, because I guess they all do, is on his back. And so it's no surprise that he can't wait to tell everybody. And it's no surprise that he's come out gung-ho, saying what he wants, what he expects. So it's not really a surprise that he's coming out with all of that. The problem is, Ancelotti's going to have to try and produce it. That's where the problem is.
Yes,
And it's also interesting to think about Ancelotti's relationship with Vini Jr. and Rodrigo, and what that relationship is going to be in Brazil. It's different than the dynamics of Real Madrid. And outside of the pressures of Real Madrid, outside of the pressures of having to play Kylian Mbappe and Bellingham, and how do you find balance in this group, that now Ancelotti is going to turn to Vini and Rodrigo in particular and say, hey, guys, listen, hey, Rodrigo, I need you to be really special for me. Now, you know that when it came to it, you're the one that was going to sit down at Real Madrid. However, in Brazil, I'm really going to need you. I imagine that these players are torn, in that there's a relationship there with Carlo Ancelotti, and I imagine it's a good relationship. But how does it change once he goes to Brazil? And how does that communication change once he goes to Brazil? We don't know how this is going to work out, but what he is going to need from both Rodrigo and Vini Jr. is to be at their very best, if indeed Brazil is going to be contending in the World Cup in 2026.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Listen, you've got to be smart when you're a coach.
Yeah.
If you're Ancelotti, 100%,
Yes.
1,000%, a million percent,
Yes.
you get the two of them and you go, by the way, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
This guy upstairs in Madrid didn't want me to play.
Florentino.
He didn't want me to play.
Florentino. Yeah.
He didn't
nothing
want
to
you
do
on
with
the
me.
field. He didn't want
I
you on
said
the
my
field.
point, but he just, he didn't want to hear it.
So
My hands were tied.
and the two of them are going to go, this guy's on, this guy's got my back. It's easy. Dead easy.
In terms of the relationships with the players, it's worth picking up on Rodrigo, I think, because a lot of people noticed Rodrigo was out of the team for the Clásico on Sunday. Not just that, he wasn't just on the bench, he didn't even warm up at any point during that 4-3 defeat to Barcelona. And late in the game, when Ancelotti was looking to the bench to throw on a forward player, looking to try to salvage the game, he threw on a kid, Munoz, who'd never played before, instead of Rodrigo. And now there's a lot of questions about that, about exactly why that is. Remember, Rodrigo started the Copa del Rey final, was hauled off at half-time. There have been some questions since then about where the relationship is, about if Ancelotti's unhappy with Rodrigo in terms of how he's been either playing or acting, and Rodrigo hasn't been too happy about always being the fourth man in that front four. And like I say, he's got to the point where in the Clásico yesterday, wasn't even called upon off the bench, didn't even warm up. So, of course, Brazil, very different context. It may just be sort of a hiccup in that relationship rather than anything serious, but it was very, very notable that otherwise, in terms of the relationship with Vini, I think that's always been very good. The same goes for Eddie Militao, of course, who's a long-term injury absentee, but will be back at some point over the summer. But the Rodrigo one is definitely one to watch.